And we're back. Okay, so I got about halfway through shooting the other video of the reassembly process and realized that, a lot of you guys are probably tuning into this to learn how to troubleshoot issues with the saber and then potentially fix them yourselves. So I wanted to break down this connector here again. Again, this is where I think a lot of the issues stem from, because the gap where the cables need to go in is so small, and then with the twisting motion, it's constantly, moving and could be causing issues for you there. So I wanted to actually take this guy apart, to show you guys, what it's like on the inside, and to show you where you need to solder them back together again. So to do that, it's just 3 screws. Okay. And they are pretty tiny, as you can see, little guys. Okay. Again, I'm kind of keeping pressure on it with my index finger just so it doesn't completely fly apart on me. Okay, and then essentially you just kind of lift this plastic piece off. Okay, and you'll see the pogo pin adapters there, and those 3 contacts that are in there are the power signal, or power data and ground, right? So that's essentially what you would do. Let me pull these guys out here. So what you would do to fix the issue, if you did need to solder it, is you would kind of take these guys, these 3 wires here, and just push them through. And you can eventually just push the whole thing out. You might need to guide it a little bit, but you can just kind of push the whole thing out, right? And you'll eventually be able to get to the back. And you see there's the solder joints that are in there. All right, let's actually, there we go. Right, so you see there's the solder joints that are there. Sometimes they're not really well soldered, but that's where you would solder them. The board is marked as well, so you'll see here it's got a positive and a negative markings. Let me see if it'll, here, let me zoom in. Right, you see there's the positive and negative marks, and obviously, but then by default the last one would be your signal wire. Okay, so to reassemble this little piece here, just basically pull the wires back through gently, guiding it there, and you'll note that so there's 3 contacts, and then there's also 3 plastic pieces there that have the holes in them for the screws. Okay, they are different. Don't line the holes for the pogo pins up with those things, because then it's not going to work. You'll also note that, see, there's a little, oh, sorry, you were not able to see any of that. There's a little gap there that needs to line up with that little tab. Okay, if you line those things up, you can't go back together wrong. Okay, there we go. So that should just go all the way down to the bottom. You just kind of push on it, make sure it's in there. And you're going to take your pogo pins, and don't lose the little springs that are on them, because they're not attached. See there? They're not attached. And they just kind of sit in the hole, right? Once you get it lined up. But the easiest way to assemble this is to actually take the pins and put them back into the plastic piece, right? To the cover, quote unquote, right? And then they just go, the long side goes down inside of these. Okay, and if you do that, it's a little more difficult to lose the springs. Okay, you're gonna hold that there, Again, there's a little notch and a notch. You're going to line those two up. Press back together. Got to wiggle it around a little bit to get the pogos to line back up with their location. Okay. Good. And then we will reassemble. And I'll zoom back out. There we go. Okay, these do not need to be very tight at all, but they do need to be, hand tight, so quote unquote. That one just stripped, just like that. Didn't even give me much resistance, just stripped. Okay. Interesting. So I have a misalignment here. I'm gonna back the screws out a little bit each one and see if I can just interesting. Okay. That's much better. Okay. All right. So then we need to remount the control, the board and the switch and all of its various cables. So we'll put those through there. There we go. Fully seated down in there. Switch is okay. So again, we're gonna hold the little spring down, put it into its slot. Alignment. Boom. Okay, it'll click in when it's in the right spot. Okay, then we're gonna put the switch back on. Again, remember this switch is spring loaded, and also this little portion here is the little leg, I call it, that presses on the actual switch itself. It's also spring loaded. So what I do is I kind of exercise that switch a little bit just by pushing it a couple of times to make sure that it's loose and that it's not bound or anything. Okay. Oh, and then you'll notice here there's a large slot there that corresponds with the slot here. And then there's a small tab and then a small tab on the quote-unquote top piece of the top of the hilt too, right? So go ahead and put this in here. This spring sits on top of this piece, not underneath it. Otherwise it'll make contact with pads and cause problems. Okay, and we're going to push it down until it goes in. Right, there's a little lip on the edge of the switch here that needs to go inside. Okay, and while it's inside, that's where it wants to come flying out. So we're going to just press it with our index finger, get things lined up correctly. Okay, again, the board here sits in the little slot there that's on the top part. So I just kind of go in, make sure things line up. Okay, and if it lines up, I can just squeeze the two pieces together. Switch is good, we're good. Okay, and before I release any tension, I'm gonna, is this the right screw? Yeah, I'm gonna put in my screw, my stripped out Phillips head. Come on, there we go. All right, and then the sleeve. One thing to note here is to help you be able to orientate which is the top and which is the bottom. Remember, so the hilt's normally like this, so I'll call this the top. This is the top, the part that has the little notches on it, okay? And again, there's a thin channel and a thick channel, which correlate to the hilt itself, right? So these go like so. Okay, and the hilt is back together. The other thing you'll notice, there's a channel here. It runs on one side of the blade. There's only one channel, and these should line up. And those actually correspond with the channel that's inside the quote-unquote outer sleeve of the hilt, but we'll worry about that in the next video here. All right, so there's the top piece assembled. Next is testing before we go to final assembly.